we're live. Rajeshri, maybe if you want to, oh, Christine's here. All right, Christine, we're live.
Hi. Welcome to the COVID313 Coalition for Families and Students. I'm Christine Bell, your co-moderator today. I am also the Executive Director of Urban Neighborhood Initiatives and a really proud member of this coalition. We are translating the town hall to Spanish and ASL. So we want to give folks time to get on the right line and get comfortable. Ophelia, please give us the details on how to listen to Spanish translation.
Sí, buenas tardes. Si estás viendo este video, lo gustaría ver en español, por favor, ir al Facebook de Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation y ahí vamos a estar transmitiendo el video en vivo. Y también ahorita en unos momentos vamos a poner el enlace para ver el video en el chat.
Thank you so much, Ophelia. Julie, it's so nice to see you again. Could you please share the instructions for ASL? Thank you so much, Julie. We appreciate having you here every Thursday. So remember, this is a two-way conversation on this town hall, and we really want to hear from you. So if you could chat your comments or questions, you can do that on Facebook. We've got Brooke and Libby and Ophelia waiting to take your questions and share your comments. Or you can text them to 313-288-2082. Again, that number is 313-288-2082. And let's just make sure that Libby and Brooke and Ophelia are listening and waiting, like I think that they are. And will you share with us, put it in the chat, text it to us, where are you joining us from today? And what topic are you most looking forward to hearing about? And while you're doing that, I am going to pass the torch to Rajeshri. Rajeshri?
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Rajeshri Bhatia. I am the Deputy Director for School Performance for Grand Valley State University's Charter Schools Office, and a lifelong educator, but most importantly, very happy to be here with all of you. As a reminder, we will be translating this town hall into Spanish. So we want to, and using an ASL interpreter. So we want to give folks time to get on the right line and get comfortable. So Ophelia, one more time, please share the information to connect to the Spanish translation.
Thank you. Si gustan ver este video transmitido e interpretado en español, por favor ir al Facebook de Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation. Ahí estamos en vivo transmitiendo este video. Y si no, también en el chat ya parece que pusieron el enlace para ver el video. Thank you.
Great. And if we could get the ASL directions as well, please. Thank you so much. We definitely want to hear from you. As Christine said, this is a two-way conversation, and the questions and comments we get from those of you who are tuned in always make this whole discussion even better. So please remember to text us at 313-288-2082 or share your questions on Facebook. Stay with us for the next hour so that you can stay informed and be empowered. Today, we've got a really unique collection of experts to share expertise in a couple of different areas that we know are of interest to all of you. Be sure to use the options to ask your questions, and let's have a little fun. We'll have a question and answer section after each segment. And if we can't answer your question today, we'll commit to getting it answered and posted on the onedetroitpbs.org site. And as a reminder, these town halls are all posted there. So if there's something that you heard and you wanted to go back and hear again, go to onedetroitpbs.org and you will find the town hall and you can reference whatever it was that you wanted to see. For our experts, please remember to speak slowly for our translators. They want to make sure that they are translating all of the important information that you're sharing, and they want to make sure they're doing it correctly. We also ask that you turn off your cameras and microphones until it's time for you to speak, and we will always, Christine or I will always introduce you and let you know when that is. Terry Whitfield is our timekeeper and will chat you using the chat feature on Zoom any of your remaining time. And if we go over a little bit, either Christine or I will gently remind you that we need to move on. So today we have an exciting town hall panel about activities for young people. We're going to bring up Mr. Mohammed Muntakim to share with us a little bit about Ramadan and how to support our families or friends during this important festival in the Islamic religion. Mohammed, please join us.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be with you all. And then good afternoon. It's after 12 p.m. So additionally, I just want to go on to speak about Ramadan as she explained. My name is Mohammed Muntakim. I am a senior student at Cass Technical High School. I led our former MSA, the Muslim Student Association. I was the former president for the past 2 years. And that is the only Muslim student association in the entire school district in Detroit. And then we worked to launch the Eid campaign, DPSCD Offer Eid campaign. As you all know, this community really supported us with this campaign, and now we're transitioning that work into building a Muslim youth council for the community. So I just want to take my time to briefly speak about the whole upcoming holy month in the next week. So Ramadan, by definition, Ramadan is the 9th month on the Arabic calendar. And we start Ramadan on next Monday. And as we start Ramadan, we're going to be fasting from dawn to dusk. But the month of Ramadan is more than just fasting. It is a month that holds so much more importance to the Islamic faith. It is a month that holds so much more importance to the community. And people are across the globe come together to celebrate this month. And I just want to briefly go about different things that we do beyond fasting in Ramadan. As we all know, Ramadan is about fasting where you refrain from food from sunrise to sunset. But also during this month, about 1400 years ago, the scripture, the Holy Quran of the Islamic faith was revealed to our Prophet Muhammad. So around the month, across the globe, people engage in activities with the Quran, memorizing, reading, and engaging in discussions about it. And then additionally, this month is a time where folks around the community, youth and adults are encouraged to seek self-care and self-improvement through a spiritual level, but also at a personal level. You're encouraged to build better habits, refrain from improve the habits that you had in the past. So it is a month where you focus on yourself, but also additionally focus on community. And a part of Ramadan is dedicated to service to the community, service to the people in need, and service to charities and donations. And one of the main things that Ramadan ends with is called a fitra, where you have to pay a certain amount to charity before you can end the month and for your goals of the month to be accepted. So overall, I think the month of Ramadan highlights what it means to be part of the community, but also elevate yourself, improve yourself along the way, serve your community while you fast. So briefly discussing kind of a day-to-day for a Muslim student or a Muslim adult, usually you wake up before sunrise to have a meal, and it's kind of like a pre-breakfast. Before sunrise, you have the meal, and then the sun rises, and then you go about your day. After the sun rises, you go about your day, and then you have school, you have work, and then as you go forward throughout the day, you engage in various activities. Usually the work day goes from like 8 to 5 or school day, and then from there you go about your day, and then after that you engage in family, you sit down, you have a iftar, you break your fast with family, and then after breaking your fast, you go into the mosque or virtual settings with the community to engage in discussions, engage in prayers, and then after that, you kind of redo the process over again. So ultimately, it's a month where you celebrate yourself, you improve yourself, but you also improve your community, you improve the people around you, and ultimately that is our goal. So as we follow this whole month of Ramadan, my encouragement to the community is support the work that Muslim students, Muslim communities are doing across the board, especially our work with the Muslim Youth Council, encouraging young people to get involved in understanding their faith, but more than that, serving the community. So I hope I can be helpful or through of service throughout the next month. And I really appreciate this space to talk, and I apologize for the distractions on my end, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Could you come back on for just one moment, and I'd love for you to just share a little bit more information about the student association that you are a part of developing, and how might students get involved in that?
Yeah, definitely. So currently we're working to develop the Muslim Youth Council, bringing together young, diverse students from across the city of Detroit to engage them in understanding the realms of organizing, the realms of community engagement, and the realms of self-identity and how to develop that. And in terms of getting involved, we're planning some events for the community. We're planning events for this coalition, especially during the month of Ramadan, to maybe iftar dinner for the entire community to engage with us. And in terms of supporting the Muslim Youth Council, where currently it's in the foundations of the work. So we're doing the application process. You can find us on our Instagram page at DPSCD Offer Eid, our campaign page that has the application for young students that are interested in applying. And then as we induct these young students, we'll equip them with the resources and the opportunities to build on this in ways they want to do. So we want this to be youth-led, youth-inspired to work for the community. So I'm really excited about what the future holds. And I think over the month of Ramadan, we'll do more events through the council or through the work we've been doing for the entire community. And ultimately for myself, being a part of this, all the work we've done, the community support, especially from our non-Muslim peers and allies, has been really helpful. So I really appreciate all the service you guys are doing for us.
And then, do you have any for our friends that are not Muslim, but that have friends that are Muslim, how we might support our Muslim friends that are celebrating and Ramadan?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it shows how much people care when they're willing to support friends and families who are Muslim when they don't share the faith. I think ultimately it goes from a personal level. I think for personally don't need necessarily any specific thing, but I think it's oftentimes nice to see occasionally my friends they like to fast for a day just to celebrate with us or engage with us. But I think asking questions and wondering or the curiosity about the faith goes a long way. It shows the genuine interest, or if you're willing to learn about the faith in the month of Ramadan, like this presentation itself is, the person presenting or the people in the Islamic faith appreciate the work. But I think through school, in terms of, I know kids in school, it's oftentimes we have to understand that as students go to school, we have to be understanding that these people are going through, they're fasting, they're going through a time where they're fasting, doing a lot more than just schoolwork. So being appreciative, but also being understanding of their situation is important for our school community. So I think as a community, just being there for people. You never know what a person might need, but just being there for support, I think is helpful.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. And I just, in terms of, I just want to highlight, maybe not asking questions about the specifics around fasting, but this, I loved what you said about the specifics of the religious practices and why the fasting, right? And what how that is significant to our Muslim brothers and sisters. So thank you so much, Mohammed. We'd love to have you back again and to share more with us. But we are going to bring on Brandon Snyder now. And Brandon is the executive director of Detroit Action, born and raised East Sider from a union family, has done a lot of youth organizing himself, and but now is in this very awesome, powerful position of being the executive director of Detroit Action that is doing such wonderful work in Detroit right now. So Brandon is going to be talking to us about property taxes, and then we're also going to have some conversation about voting. So let's start with property taxes in Detroit and what is going on that front right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Christine. What up, though, folks? I'm Brandon Snyder. As mentioned, I'm the executive director of Detroit Action. We are a grassroots, member-led, community-based organization building power for working class Black and Brown folks. Our youth committee, Voices of Detroit Youth, are a part of the 482 Forward Citywide Youth Coalition. And we've been a happy member and participant of the 313 COVID community. So this is my second time being on the panel with y'all. So I want to kind of talk about, as Christine mentioned, sort of what's the intersection of our work at Detroit Action, which is housing and voting. And so I'm going to do the two separately, and you'll see some overlap. But right now we're in a moment where the two big issues in our organization are coming front and center, where I have some things to sort of talk to folks about. So Lindsay, if you don't mind putting up the slides, I can get started. Awesome. So, you know, as I mentioned, I lead an organization called Detroit Action. We do grassroots organizing. If you want to go to the next slide. You know, we're a grassroots member organization. We're next slide. You know, so we envision a vibrant economy and a thriving community where Michiganders have access to good jobs, good neighborhoods, and good schools. And, you know, in order to achieve this vision, you know, we believe in neighborhood-based organizing throughout the city of Detroit and throughout the metro region. You know, our key strategy is similar to what everybody, our partner organizations on this call do, which is talking to our friends, talking to our neighbors, building power with each other, and building deep relationships. Next slide. And so part of the origin of our work is we're a marriage, if you will, of two different organizations, one being Good Jobs Now, which was an SEIU Fight for Fair Economy campaign that exists on the heels of Occupy Wall Street in 2011 and sort of predates the fast food workers strike. And the other part of our marriage is the Detroit Action Commonwealth, a union of homeless, formerly incarcerated, and working class Detroiters on the Northeast side. And so to the left of the screen is our understanding of how and why we organize. You know, there are a number of things that people do and articulated as organizing, from direct service to education. You know, direct service, you know, helping people, supporting people through soup kitchens, through homeless shelters, through pickups, cleanups, to direct action where, you know, people speaking in power, you know, speaking up to people in power on behalf of their self. We try and do all the things across the spectrum, and we try and confront those in power to make changes, not on behalf of people who are hurting, but with people who are hurting. So we believe deeply in the people who are closest to the problem, are closest to the solution. Next slide. So here's a little bit more of our structure. So we're Detroit Action. When we say the name, we're actually three organizations. One being a C3, our C4, our mothership, a C3, which is our education and nonpartisan arm, and then our super PAC, Michigan Action. Next slide. All right, and so it's a little bit more about our organizing model. So again, I mentioned we believe in we do a bunch of different cool things that, you know, allow us to build deep power with folks. To change policy and politics of the state. And why I wanted to use this slide is that if you look in the top right corner, the Keep Families in Their Homes picture comes from an action that we did in 2019, on May Day, on May 1st, around the Wayne County tax auction and how it, unfairly removed families and displaced Detroiters from their homes throughout, over the last decade. Next slide. So a little bit about how we got here and and when we talk about tax foreclosure, what this means. So the big things that have happened over the last 60 years, we've seen a divestment and a depopulation of Detroit. At one time, Detroit was the 4th largest city by population in the country, home to some 2.2 million people, a booming automotive and manufacturing industry, and a large tax base. But big macroeconomic forces have driven down the population and have caused flight. We look at the creation of the freeway, we look at redlining, we look at the change in automation, so moving, no longer needing people for a lot of those manufacturing jobs. Some of the things that have happened in the city around white flight and the invention of the suburbs have meant that 2 million people that used to live in Detroit are now some 600,000. But we still have a space and a landmass that was built for 2 million people, which means that our tax base is working or our city's working overtime to accommodate 600,000 people in a tax base that used to accommodate 2 million people. So there's a gap in resources. The other thing that caused how we got here was a 2008 housing crisis, which, due to mortgages and subprime mortgages, many Detroiters, and especially Black Detroiters, lost their homes and lost their wealth. The foreclosure crisis not only displaced people, but people lost their homes, and those homes were put up it became in the hands of banks or the land bank, which is a quasi public-private partnership between the city government to take ownership of homes. The land bank in the city of Detroit is the largest homeowner, or largest property owner rather, in the city of Detroit. The third place of how we got here was overassessments of low-income homes. So we had this 2008 housing crisis that wiped out neighborhoods where people were getting mortgages that were well above what their homes were actually worth, but assessments, actually determining what the value of a home was, didn't actually meet and match what homes were actually really worth in a post foreclosure crisis. So you may have gotten a mortgage for $200,000, and you may have had your home assessed for $200,000, but your value of your actual home may have actually only been $20,000, meaning that you were paying 10 times more what your home was actually worth in taxes, and not actually having that value of your home. And that caused people to be displaced. People were unable to afford the taxable value of that home. And then I think the last thing of how we got here was the Wayne County tax auction, which I'll talk a little bit about and which will focus deeply into this conversation, is that the tax auction, our eBay style auction of getting homes out of the land bank, out of the county's land bank, into the homes of folks, if they've, of other buyers, if they've been foreclosed on, basically operated as a free-for-all for speculators and developers. So people were able to buy homes on a low value and flip them at the expense of occupied homeowners, so families. So next slide. So one of the big things I want to lift up is foreclosures cause blight. We did a huge study with Loveland Technologies over the last 4 years that talked about the foreclosure auction, the tax auction drove, not only was a key driver of blight, but it also, was one of the largest distributions of wealth from the hands of individual homeowners into the speculator and developer class. What you see here in these slides are pictures of homes, and how they looked in 2009, and then how they looked in 2016. So before they were foreclosed on and after they were foreclosed on. So if you live in Detroit, you've been in Detroit, you've no doubt seen some of these homes or seen examples of this. Homes that are sitting and waiting to be auctioned while they're being foreclosed on are prime opportunities for folks to strip them and pull the resources from as they sit and decay. Next slide. So what does all this mean? So we've been hit by a wave of tax foreclosures. No doubt you've seen this map before. We've been hit by a wave of tax foreclosures in the last over these last 2 decades. This is a map that's from 2002 to 2017. 2017 is a prominent year for us when we talk about the tax foreclosure auction. These are homes that have went through foreclosure. And so you see mostly red. So there's almost 1 out of 3 homes in the city of Detroit went through a property tax foreclosure. Next slide. So Detroit Action, Loveland Technologies, and the Sociological Initiatives Foundation did a report looking at the 2017 tax auction. And we wanted to figure out, what were the causes of foreclosure? Why was it leading to blight? What was happening in our neighborhoods, and how could we fix it? Next slide. And so what we found were a couple of things. So 58% of the properties in the 2017 auction were occupied structures. So meaning someone lived in that home. Next slide. This is the updated map. So I showed you 2017's map. This is the updated map for 2019. So you see, most neighborhoods have been affected by foreclosure. And what we've seen is now that, all told, more than 150,000 properties have been through the tax foreclosure auction, with 170,000 auction events happening during this span. Next slide. And so this is devastating. So we found some key things for the tax auction that lead into this moment that we're in now. Is one, that most foreclosed properties were owned by speculators and landlords, not by owner occupants, not by a single individual family that lived in it. Investors, own nearly 3 out of every 4 Detroit properties that went back to the county. Speculators dominated the tax auction, so 3 out of 4 of those folks purchased properties that went, and then, what they ended up using that as an auction, as a place really to flip their properties. Some folks would just have their properties go into the tax auction, lose it, spend really low, and then go buy another property for a little or no amount, basically earning money on the low from these properties without really having to do a lot of investment. Next slide. Some of the other things that we learned is that the properties in the land bank need a lot of attention. Of the 1,300 properties, that were bundled parcels and, that were transferred to the land bank from the tax auction, 79 still had structures on them in late 2018 that were candidates for demolition. So some 79 of them needed demolition, 176 had that were in poor condition, and others, needed to just, that were just wide open, need to be trespassed, that were getting trespassed on. And, more importantly, the cycle continues. Now we're talking in 2021. This is a report on 2017 that we published in 2020, but these problems still persist. Families are still losing their homes. The tax auction is still a driver for gentrification. It's still a driver for displacement. And there are, big structural needs that need to happen in order to keep families in their homes. Next slide. And so here's where some policies come in order to keep families in their homes. One is the HTAP, the Homeowners Property Tax Assistance Program. This is a property tax program that the city of Detroit has used in order to make sure that families who are on fixed incomes, no incomes, whatever, if they can't pay their taxes, they're able to get a waiver. One of the biggest problems from 2002 to 2017 was that it was really arbitrary and hard for people to even get access to the waivers. People had to apply to get an application to apply for the waiver. People needed a notary. You needed a number of evidence and proof that you were on a fixed income or had no income, and then the city really did a poor job of even showing that this was a thing that they had. So families, that were eligible to have their homes saved, eligible to have their taxes wiped away, actually were losing their homes because the city did such a poor job of making sure this was a program that people were aware of. So over the last few years, we've worked to make sure that this thing has been highlighted and been more prominent as one of the city's solutions to keep people in their homes. But that's not enough. That just means that people right now who are eligible for this tax year are able to not taxes in their homes foreclosed. So next slide. So one of the second things that we had to create was pay as you stay, which is a fair, affordable payment plan for tax owners, property tax folks who are at risk of losing their homes from previous year's taxes. And so pay as you stay creates a payment plan to basically wipe away tax debt and reduce tax debt for people who owe for previous years. So you've paid down in certain years, you still have some debt remaining. This allows you to make sure that you're able to stay in your home and make sure that there's a payment plan and a process for past year's debt. And so it's a three-part process. Forgive that slide and that picture. This is the best version of it I can find. So, the first part of the payment plan is that, any of the folks who have high back taxes, they're able to pay that back. People with low back taxes, as long as the taxable value meets the cap, they're able to pay that back. And then, there's another payment plan example of, folks who have, all of their fees, the fines and fees that add up over the years of you paying, the minimum, having that removed. So this pay as you stay refers to, help support folks in those three different payment tiers. Next slide. So again, so this is sort of enumerates, what I mentioned. So, pay as you stay talks about, all interest, fees, and penalties eliminated. So making sure that if you owe fines and fees from a previous year, it helps, applying for this program helps to wipe that away. The balance due means the only back taxes or 10% of the taxable value. So if you own, $1,900 on taxes, you can either pay the back taxes only or 10% of the taxable value. And the remaining balance paid back over 3 years at 0% interest. So instead of fines and fees racking up. So these are really good things that Detroit Action, a number of our partners across the state have worked hard to make sure that we're, fought for and that the governor was able to sign in 2019. But this still doesn't actually help support families who don't have an income, who have back taxes, and whose taxes are, were caused by the fact that they were unaware of the pay-as-you-stay program. So what is needed for families like that, hard-working class families, is retroactive relief. Making sure that we're able to pay back taxes for folks, in previous years. So what you owe in previous years, making sure we're able to pay that back. And so this recent, next slide. Yeah, so this recent news of the Gilbert Family Trust and their donation of $500 million for their entire trust, but $15 million for property taxes is a big win. It's not great that philanthropy is doing what the government should be doing, but this allows families to be able to have their taxes removed and to be able to stay in their homes. We should, as community organizers, as activists, should be trying to push this family fund, the Gilbert Family Fund, and our city to do more. But in the meantime, this is actual real relief to keep folks in their homes and be able to support families as they need. So here's how it looks like for homeowners. If you have back property taxes and you want to take advantage of this, so a resident will call the call center. This call center is run by Rock Connections, which is the Rock Ventures Quicken call center, or they can get on Wayne Metro's website, property taxes, waynemetro.org/property taxes. Rock Connections will We'll verify the person's address against the housing data to see, what their their tax status is, and then they'll move them into the next step. And so you can go either one or two directions. Direction one is with Wayne Metro. So if you've been granted an HTAP, so if you've already applied for the housing property tax exemption program, then they'll direct you to to the fund. They'll pay off and how they can pay off your debt. If you have already been granted a HTAP, but you don't own back taxes, then they'll direct you to Wayne Metro for more information on counseling to keep you out of debt. If you haven't been given a HP TAP for this year, then they'll route you to a partner. There are a number of partners, both on this call as well as throughout the city, who help folks sign up for the HP TAP, and also will guide you through the process of not only getting the HP TAP, but then going back to Wayne Metro and getting your back taxes removed. So this is the process that we have right now. It's a big win again for property taxes, but there's a lot more to be done if we talk about housing justice. Next slide. So here are some recommendations that came out of our research report, as well as what we see right now is needed. So the big one is we need to stop auction off occupied homes. While this is helpful and will keep a lot of families out of the foreclosure auction, the foreclosure auction was on pause in 2020, but it resumes this year. And that means that families who owe property taxes, who may not be aware of the HP TAP, who may not be aware of the Quicken or the Gilbert Family Trust, are at risk of losing their home. So we need the county and the city to stop auctioning occupied homes. The second recommendation is the city's right of refusal. So they can actually, move homes out of the auction at their discretion. So we should be the city should be using more of that power to keep homes out of the auction, and using that right of refusal process to, in strategic manners. There are a lot of ways they can do it. There are a lot of ways that we've seen it may be done, and that they should use that power more often. The third recommendation is consider a property tax cut and some form of relief. So you've heard people talk about the $600 million of being overtaxed. This is what that comes down to, is that people need reparations for losing their homes over these last 2 decades. Fourth, we need restrictions on who can actually participate in the tax auction. We shouldn't allow corporations and speculators and folks who are just looking to flip homes and not actually pay any taxes and risk the livelihoods of families. We shouldn't allow those folks to participate in the tax auction. And then fifth is we should consider non-market solutions. So we need to be thinking really creatively, using our community strategies. There are a number of us that are on this call, and a number of our partners who are not, who participate in a number of really cool things around CLCs, which are community land contracts, being able to own the land, having nonprofits take over these different spaces. We should be considering those sort of strategies as we think about ending foreclosures. And then I would just say the last thing that's not listed on here, but is deeply connected, is that, we just passed this bond, which is the proposal in. And while that fixes homes and demolishes homes, it doesn't do anything to actually solve the crisis of home repair. As we've seen, a number of homes will sit and wait during the property tax auction and become dilapidated. A number of our older residents and lower income residents are having their homes become dilapidated over time, and we actually need more resources, both from the Gilbert Family Trust, but also from the city, to make sure that folks who are in these homes are able to stay in these homes and have their homes repaired. So I'm gonna stop right there.
Brandon, that was such an amazing overview of how we got here and where we're going, and also just highlighting the wins, what we've won, but also the work that needs to be done. So just 2 clarifying questions. The first is, if you want to apply for forgiveness for your taxes, you need to do that every year, correct?
Correct, which is ridiculous.
Right.
If you are a person who is on a fixed income this year, you're probably gonna be on a fixed income next year and the year afterward.
Right,
So we
right.
need to do more to make sure that the city is eliminating those processes. They've done a lot to eliminate like the hurdles to apply for the tax exemption, like having a notary, but like exemption, like removing that hurdle of having to apply every single year is like a key hurdle that our folks, are in desperate need of.
Absolutely. So I just want to make sure that the folks that are listening, if you are struggling, and we know many of us are because of COVID, and some of us are on fixed incomes, apply for your your property taxes to be forgiven or eliminated, and you need to do that every year and do that now. So and then also the new program that was announced, it does not pay back taxes. Is that correct? Or does it pay back taxes?
It pays back taxes. You have to apply and they will assess you is essentially the process. But it has to work in combination. So what the city and the state are hoping that people do is apply for the HTAP, which is the city's property tax exemption, then apply for the PAYS, which is the state's retroactive exemption. So meaning that you're on this payment plan where you pay either the back taxes or 10%, and then go through Wayne Metro, which allows you to have that wiped off.
Got it. And then so you said a little bit, so it's how are we making sure that the people that most need this, right, the dollars, and
Yeah.
that's been in a couple of the news articles, is like, this really is for folks that can't be on a payment plan, that there's just not the income to be on a payment plan.
Yeah.
Do you know how they're making sure that they're reaching out to reach those families? Because they tend to be our most vulnerable families.
Good question. Yeah.
So
yeah. Good question. Like, and those folks aren't the people who are going to be, on Facebook, or if you will, they may not be, these sort of shows that we're doing right now, where we're in partnership with PBS, and, our community groups are good ways to reach out. But it's also going to come down to door-to-door engagement. And I think like organizations like ours, there are a number of folks are trying to become navigators to help folks apply, be aware of like the process, and really, make sure that they are, for lack of a better words, able to turn their anger, away from themselves, of like, hey, I lost my home, to the people who caused it.
Right. And I think you did a really wonderful job of laying out all of the macroeconomic situation that was happening, that created this situation, and that is perpetuating it, right? So we would like to ask you, because you did such a great job with the property tax, we have run out of time. And so can you come back next week and talk about the bills that are being proposed right now in Michigan around voting? And we would love it if you would do the same sort of in-depth kind of both history and analysis of how we're here and what we can do, and what we can do to support or not support. And so would you be willing to come back next week?
I can do that.
Great. Put it in your calendar right now. So you put a hold on your calendar. We really, really appreciate your time, Brandon. You always do such a wonderful job, and we appreciate your partnership in this coalition. And we want to remind everyone, if you have questions or comments, you can put them in the Facebook chat. Brooke is there, Ophelia's there, Libby's there, waiting for you, eagerly waiting to text me so I can ask them. But you can also text your questions to 313-288-2082. The number again is 313-288-2082. We'll continue to bring folks on to the town hall that can give us detailed information about property tax supports. I think Brandon just did an excellent job of sharing how that process works and the different programs, and quite frankly, you know, where you might find yourself walking through a couple of different programs. But we'll make sure that we keep all of you abreast of what is happening out there. And thank you, Brandon, again for being here. And now I am going to pass the torch or the mic to Rajeshri, the virtual mic.
Thanks, Christine.
You're welcome.
We are going to get into our medical expert section. So I'd love to invite Dr. Tina Chopra to turn on her mic and her camera and join us. While she's doing that, let me introduce her. Dr. Chopra is an infectious disease specialist, a professor of internal medicine and infectious diseases for Wayne State University School of Medicine, as well as the corporate medical director of infection prevention and hospital epidemiology at the DMC. That is a mouthful, Dr. Chopra. Thank you so much for being here today. We're excited to hear from you. I'm going to jump right into the questions. I mean, first of all, what's going on out there? We're seeing numbers rising. We're seeing, you know, all kinds of scary statistics. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what's going on out there in the community and how we should interpret what we're hearing and seeing?
Sure. Thank you, Rajeshri, for having me. And thank you, everybody who's joined in. So, you know, Michigan is surging right now. We are in our 4th surge, and Michigan has become an epicenter in the nation with rates as high as 18% positivity rates in some areas. You know, most of the state is seeing this high surge because of the variants. As you know, the UK variant B117 has replaced the traditional COVID strain by more than 50%. So this variant is highly transmissible and it's also more virulent. And that's why we are seeing this surge. In addition, I think we haven't, even though the governor has ramped up vaccination, we are not there yet with our vaccination in the state. Even though our elderly have been protected, and this time around we are seeing less cases in our older population, but we are seeing this huge surge in our 40s and 50-year-olds who are being hospitalized and are also seeing severe disease in these categories.
So something you said was very interesting. So you're telling me that the variant, what we're calling the variant, has now replaced the original strain as the primary.
Correct, yes, because the virus has mutated itself, and the variant version of the virus is more transmissible and it's also more virulent. We do know that vaccines that are out there do cover the variant, but the efficacy of the vaccine is 95% for the historical strain, but we don't know yet if the efficacy of the vaccine is as high for the variant. It does protect against the variant, but not as much as it protected against the historical strain.
Okay, so the vaccines do protect us, but it may not be as protective against the variant as it was against the original strain. And something else you said that was interesting is that the elderly population who have received the vaccines in larger, numbers seem to be more protected than those in their 40s and 50s. And that's who you're seeing in the hospital. So younger folks are getting impacted and they're getting sick, from what I'm hearing for you.
That's correct. Yes, they are those that are coming to us early on in their illness. We have treatment options for them, but if they delay, they are getting sick and they are being admitted to the ICU. And most of these patients are either not vaccinated or they've had their 1 dose of vaccination. As you know, 1 dose is not sufficient to protect them from the virus. So they are still being hospitalized and they are, faced with severe disease.
Okay, so that brings us to another question about, the idea about what are you seeing about in people actually getting COVID after being vaccinated, and can they spread it to others?
That's a great question. We are still learning more about this virus, whether there is asymptomatic transmission in those who are vaccinated. We don't know yet. And also the fact that vaccinated individuals are protected to a degree, 95% efficacy with the vaccine with Moderna and Pfizer, and about 67% with J&J. But there is still a chance that you can get COVID. There's still a 5% chance with Moderna and Pfizer that you can get COVID. And we have seen about 250 cases of COVID in patients who are vaccinated. So hence the need for continued masking, social distancing, washing hands, and not congregating in large settings, not traveling, particularly with the surge that we are now seeing in Michigan.
Those are great practical suggestions, Doctor. Thank you. So if you are vaccinated, right, and you get exposed, what should someone do?
Yeah, so
Meaning fully vaccinated. Let's just say you're 2 weeks past your second or your 1 dose.
those are great questions. And we have seen individuals who are vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and they are exposed. So basically, you don't do anything other than watching for symptoms. You keep your, hopefully when you were exposed, you were masked. And if you were not masked, then you are at high chance, there's a high chance that you will have symptoms. Because you could be in that 5% category where the vaccine was not protective. So you could get symptoms. So you want to continue masking whenever you go out. And if you develop symptoms, you will have to, in the same manner, get tested and quarantine for 10 days until your symptoms resolve.
So in those cases, if you start to see symptoms, should people be going to the ER? Should people be going to their doctors? When should somebody go to the ER?
Sure. Usually vaccinated individuals who are exposed and have COVID are presenting with milder symptoms, but there are rare cases where they have moderate to severe symptoms. So yes, if you develop symptoms, you want to get tested, you want to see your physician, you want to go to the ER if you're short of breath, you have high-grade fever, or you have chest pains, then you want to go to the ER and get tested again, and you want to remain isolated from your other family members so as not to transmit the virus to others.
Okay, so if chest pains, high-grade fever, and short of breathness, that's what should take you to the ER. Otherwise, you should be seeing your own physician.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's helpful, because I think that's the part that people don't quite know where to go with this, with this kind of potential. So, Doctor, since we're seeing such numbers as we're seeing now, and knowing that we're vaccinated, it's kind of counterintuitive in a certain respect, except when you now take into consideration the variant. Why isn't the state shutting down right now? Why aren't we shutting down schools? What's different?
That's a great question. Again, I have the same question. I think the relaxation of restrictions came a bit too soon. As an epidemiologist, I would do otherwise. I would let the vaccines roll in and develop at least 60 to 70% vaccination in the community before I would relax the restrictions, like, opening gyms, opening restaurants, allowing sports. All of these are very high risk activities which have led to the outbreaks. If you look at the outbreaks in Michigan, they're all linked to sporting events. They are linked to travel. They are linked to younger children returning from spring break. So I think we want to, since it is a race against the vaccination, if we want to win that race, we should vaccinate more and more individuals before we open up. So given what we are seeing in the state, I would really urge to close the restaurants for some time, and also to go virtual with schools for a brief period of time until we can get there where we want to be.
Thanks. That, what you're saying echoes what some of the other doctors who have come on this town hall have said as well, that the same sort of high risk activities is also what they're attributing this surge to. And it's this very difficult catch-22. We often have schools and educators on here as well, and we talk about the impact that being virtual is having on kids in terms of their mental and emotional health. And it's this unfortunate situation where we feel sort of pressed to choose between physical and emotional health, safety and economic recovery. I mean, there's so many very difficult dilemmas that are involved here. And, it makes it very hard, but it's helpful to hear someone like you kind of explain it from at least, the one perspective. So everyone who's listening can use that information to make their own decisions. Are there any situations in which it's okay to not wear a mask? Or is that something we should just be doing pretty much anytime we're around other people?
Yeah, I would considering what we are seeing at this point and the fact that we don't know much about the virus still, I would continue masking. I think we should remember that we have a huge population of younger children who are not vaccinated. And they cannot be vaccinated until we have vaccines for them. So we are trying to, through our vaccination efforts and through our masking efforts, we are trying to build this this protection for our children, for our younger adults, and for those people who cannot be vaccinated at this time. So we want to, I would urge everyone to continue masking and not, have those situations where you are unmasked completely. Also, now we know that we can get COVID even after getting vaccinated. So even more of a reason to be masked all the time.
Okay, so you all heard it here. Masks all the time if you're around people outside of your own family, because even if you're vaccinated, you could potentially get COVID. And lastly, Dr. Chopra, before I transition to Christine, who's got a few questions for you, what do you want to make sure that all Michiganders, anyone watching this, know about the COVID vaccine right now?
One most important thing is vaccines are very safe. We have 3 COVID vaccines that are available, the Moderna, Pfizer, and the J&J vaccine. All 3 are very safe. And whenever it is your turn, you should get the vaccine. It is none of the vaccines affect your DNA. The risk of getting COVID is much more harmful to your body, and post-COVID syndrome, which is so common. We are seeing more and more data on post-COVID patients who've had COVID. 1 in 3 COVID patients are developing a neurological or a psychiatric illness. In order to prevent all those complications, the safest thing that we have in place is getting a vaccine.
1 in 3 patients are developing something post-COVID, neurological or psychological. That is scary. And it really, that hits the message home. Preventing this is the best thing we can do. Christine, I'll transition to you because I know we've got some questions.
We do. That is a scary statistic, and scary in the sense of reminds us that this is serious regardless of what your symptoms may be, on the onset, right? For many people I've heard, well, I just have a cold, it feels like a cold, but what could happen later is something we also need to think about. So one of our viewers has asked, how long after having COVID should we get vaccinated?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. Usually after having COVID for 3 months, you will have protection in the form of natural immunity and antibodies. But according to CDC, you don't have to wait 3 months. For 3 months, if the vaccine is available to you, you should get it whenever it's available to you. But it's a good piece of information to have that for 3 months, you will have natural immunity against COVID.
Great. And then, and I'm not sure if you answered this, so I just want to ask it again. Will the vaccine lessen the severity of the disease if you contract it?
Absolutely. In clinical trials, we noticed that the vaccinated individuals were less likely to be hospitalized and they had less severe disease. Definitely the fact that vaccines are so effective against preventing hospitalizations, preventing severe disease, it's so important to get it as soon as you can.
Okay. But you still can get it. It just the symptoms will be less then.
Absolutely.
And then the vaccine, though, is this right that all 3 vaccines have been 100% effective for preventing death?
That is correct.
Okay.
Christine, that is correct. All three vaccines have been very, very effective against severe disease, against mortality, and against hospitalization.
And the last two questions are about the variant. How do people know if they get the variant?
Yeah, unfortunately, the only way to find out if they have the variant is if you get your, if the sample is sent to the state for strain typing, but the symptoms are very similar. The treatment is exactly similar. The symptoms of both the strains are exactly similar. But like I said earlier, 50 to 60% of COVID that we are getting in Michigan is actually from the variant. So because the variant has replaced a traditional strain and the fact that it spread so fast, that is the only thing that can tell you. But we don't need to really know, because our immunity will work in the same manner and our treatment will be the same. The only reason the state is so interested to find out is because we want to see how the virus is mutating for epidemiological reasons, and also for the future of vaccinology. It is important to know what strain we are dealing with.
So the last question about the variant is this, is that, so you said it's more contagious. The measures that we currently have in place, wearing a mask, washing our hands, will that, and social distancing, does that protect us in the same way from the variant?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We have to still do the same things: washing hands, masking, the mask, making sure the mask is appropriately donned and doffed. You wash your hands, you wear your mask on your nose and mouth. It should be a tight fitting mask, and you want to remain socially distant and not indulge in high risk behavior like partying or being in a congregated setting.
Okay, and this is the last question, but it's an important one. Can pregnant women get the vaccine?
Absolutely. In fact, now we have a new study that just got published that describes the safety of the vaccine in pregnant as well as breastfeeding moms. So it is completely safe to get the vaccine. In fact, the study describes how the risks of getting COVID are much higher to your baby. So you do want to get vaccinated.
Thank you so much. This was such wonderful, wonderful information. We want to remind people, keep your questions and comments coming. You can put them in the Facebook chat, or you can text them to 313-288-2082. Thank you so much. This was so great. We'd love to have you back on again. I feel like we've got this team of doctors that just have been so awesome in giving common sense and not so common sense information about the vaccine. So we really appreciate it. Rajeshri, if you will introduce our next panel. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Dr. Chopra. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next segment is going to be about the Michigan Reconnect Scholarship. So if I could invite our guests to please turn on your cameras for us, and I will introduce to you Ms. Atari and Ms. Johnson to tell us more about this Reconnect Scholarship. If you can each give us a 2-minute overview of the scholarship, and then we actually have a scholar, our own Akila, who will be asking you some specific questions. So ladies, welcome, and we appreciate your being here.
Thanks. I'll just kick things off and then hand it over to Ava, if that's okay. But my name's Brandy Johnson. I've spoke with this group before, really honored to be asked back. I am Governor Whitmer's education policy advisor, and I cover issues related to both K-12 education, higher education, and workforce development. And one of the accomplishments that we are so proud of during this really obviously tumultuous and traumatic time that we've all gone through with COVID is standing up this program called Michigan Reconnect, which was a bipartisan policy package that the governor signed in 2020 with support from both the House and the Senate and from across both sides of the aisle, that makes community college tuition free for all adults in Michigan age 25 and older. So this is an incredible game changer for our state and a huge investment in our state and our workforce. So with that, I'd love to introduce Ava Atari, who can say a few words about the structure of the program, and then we look forward to questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. My name is Ava Atari. I'm actually a University of Michigan Data and Policy Fellow working with the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, overseeing the Reconnect program. So as Brandy mentioned, this program is a bipartisan program. It was launched this year in February 2nd. So you can actually check it out on our website, michigan.gov/reconnect. You can go there to submit your application. It's a rolling application, so there's no deadline to apply. So you'll submit your application online, and the eligibility requirements are that you have to be a Michigander, age 25 or older. You have to have your high school diploma or equivalent, so for example, a GED. You must not have your bachelor's or associate's degree, and you have to have lived in Michigan for a year or more. Once you submit your application, there's a few steps that you have to take to actually receive the award. So apply to a Michigan Public Community College, submit your federal aid application, the FAFSA, and then enroll in classes at least half-time in an associate degree program or an industry recognized certificate program within 1 year of submitting your scholarship application. And that's it. Happy to take questions if you have.
Akila, oh, thank you. Akila, can you, could you come on and start to ask the questions that we have prepared?
Yes, thank you so much, Christine. And thank you, Ava and Brandy, for talking about this program. I am Akila Muntakim. I'm the Deputy Director of Mothering Justice and also a Michigan Reconnect Scholarship recipient. I was really excited when I learned about the program. Initially, I did see that there was a frontliner option. So when I saw Reconnect, I was like, yeah, I can finally go back to school. So some of the questions that I wanted to ask are, what does the scholarship cover and what is not covered?
Absolutely. First, it's so good to meet you, Akila. I'm very excited. And glad that you're a scholarship recipient. But so that's a great question. I love this question. I also run Futures for Frontliners, so I'm so used to talking about that program as well. But very similar to Futures for Frontliners, Michigan Reconnect is a last dollar scholarship program after other Pell Grant federal and state funds are applied to your tuition, contact hours, and mandatory fees. And so Reconnect covers what's not covered. We cover the in-district amount. So if you go to your local in-district community college, if you don't have other Pell Grant or state awards that cover your tuition, mandatory fees, or contact hours, then Reconnect will cover what's not covered by other scholarships or awards.
All right, thank you. And specifically, then if we are talking about the mandatory fees that are supposed to be covered, I did notice that books and other required student fees like course fees are not something that's covered. That was something that, well, a roadblock I ran into personally with the scholarship was I set up my schedule for classes and I came back and saw that I still had, charges remaining for mandatory course fees that were needing to be paid. So why are those things not covered, since they are important to be paid out before you can actually move forward with taking classes?
Yeah, that's a great question. You actually, and Brandy, I'll let you jump in here too, but one of the things that you did ask me is what's not covered by the program. So what I mentioned was what is covered. It's in-district tuition, mandatory fees, and contact hours. What's not covered are, like you mentioned, books, course fees, other program fees. Michigan Reconnect is a free tuition program, and so there are other college costs that are not covered by the program. And Brandy, I'll let you jump in here if you had additional.
Yeah, I'll just add that is, I think, really great feedback and something we can bring back to the legislature, particularly as the answer to your question is because that's not how the legislature wrote the law. The legislature put the boundaries on what can be covered under Michigan Reconnect. But that being said, I think this kind of feedback is really helpful to take back to legislators, to talk to them about the barriers, the remaining financial barriers that are true roadblocks to pursuing post-secondary education. And I'm also hopeful and think there certainly could be an opportunity to utilize American Rescue Plan dollars, the additional federal dollars we're receiving from Washington, from the Biden administration and Congress, to help offset these costs to make reconnectors and frontliners successful as they pursue their post-secondary degrees and certificates.
Thank you. I'm really grateful that you all are going to take this feedback and, attempt to see if there is an option, because my biggest concern is, I have a job, that's why I'm here, and I can fortunately afford to pay for the fees and my books. But if I were in a position where I didn't have a job, or for the low income students who are attempting to improve their quality of life by gaining access to a quality higher education, something like $112 in fees and then $200 in books just to attend school part-time could really make them, drop those classes and not move forward. So when could we expect to know if there would be any changes to the Michigan Reconnect program to break down some of those financial barriers?
I don't think it will be in time for this summer semester. So I think, currently the legislature is on spring recess. So I think it would take a while to get us to a point to amend the legislation. That being said, like I said, if the legislature is able to authorize the use of federal dollars, I do think that this is something that LEO could set up quickly, the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, to make additional grants available to reconnectors to provide additional financial supports. But not something that Ava and I can are the decision makers about and can commit to today.
Well, thank you. That is very helpful to know, where we can look to see about any amendments. So I do appreciate that. And then one of the last questions that I have is if this scholarship can be paired with Detroit Promise.
That's a great question. So the answer is no, because it's targeting two different age populations. So Detroit Promise is for students that are coming right out of high school. So they're 18. This Michigan Reconnect program are for adults that are 25 and older. So in some ways, it's filling a gap that the Detroit Promise can't, to making sure our adult students also have the same opportunities that high school students have in order to provide, a pathway to a college degree or certificate in a way that is tuition free.
All right. Well, thank you again so much, Brandy and Ava, for contributing to this conversation about Michigan Reconnect. I definitely encouraged all of my mom friends to sign up for the scholarship so that we can all get some degrees together, because I know finances, especially since I have 4 kids, was always a factor in not returning to school. And I will pass it over to Rajeshri to continue the conversation.
Thank you to all of you, to Ava and Brandy and Akila, for asking those great questions and sharing this really important information with our community. Thank you so much. We're now going to transition into a panel about caregiving, and I'd like to invite Ms. Patricia, publisher of the Urban Aging News, to facilitate this panel. I'll introduce the guests: Mr. Vincent Tilford, Executive Director of the Hannon Center on Caregiving Services, Antonia Harbin Lamb, who's an attorney who specializes in elder law, and of course, Ms. Patricia. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us. I actually started Urban Aging News about 6 years ago, and it was a result of having to navigate both of my parents through the aging process and wanting to age in place at home and not knowing anything about services or resources or anything. And so I made a commitment that I was going to, by some means, develop some means of communication to help other families. And so that is the reason we're here today. I'd like to say I'm all about aging and its accompanying issues, and that caregiving of older adults by family caregivers is an issue that will impact all of us. The issue is so important that the Southeast Michigan Solutions Journalism Collaborative, it's a collaborative of news agencies, has been established in our region to spotlight this issue in print and electronic media over the next 2 years. If you don't think this issue pertains to you, I'll remind you of what our former First Lady Rosalind Carter once said: we will all in this lifetime be a caregiver or need a caregiver. And so I'll start with Vincent Tilford, who will give us an overview of the caregiver issues. Vincent is the executive director of Midtown's Hannon Center. And Hannon has the mission of preserving the dignity and enhance the quality of life of seniors in Michigan through arts and culture, social services, and caregiver services. Vincent, take it away.
Well, hello, Pat. Good seeing you again. And as you said, I thought that's a great quote that you gave us from Rosalind Carter. And she also adds in there that you can also be people who are caregivers currently or who eventually need one as well. And that's why this issue is so important. You've already mentioned that there are family caregivers out there. There's somewhere between 50 to 60 million family caregivers, and these are all unpaid, caregivers who have these responsibilities, and they can come in a variety of forms. It could be an older person caring for a younger person, a senior caring for another senior. It could be a friend caring for someone who is not a family member, and the list goes on. And I would say, secondly, when you consider all of those issues, the responsibilities also vary. You have caregivers who live far away. Say it's your mom and dad is in another state, and you're trying to caregive from a distance. That creates a whole set of complications versus, say, someone who is local and is having to, say, give up their job in order to be a caregiver. So the responsibilities are great, and there's not a lot of support for them. It really is, I would call, a labor of love. It brings out a lot of difficult emotions. As you talked about trying to caregive for your mom, and certainly the challenges that you had there. But the emotions it brings out can be both positive and negative. And the fact of the matter is that we're all human, and we can get really frustrated with this responsibility of caregiving. And when we get overwhelmed, when it gets to be too much, or when we get angry, that's when we need to know how to sort of step back and refresh ourselves and to renew. And that's where certainly knowing the types of services that are out there and supports that are out there can help you. I want to make a quick plug here because you mentioned the Journalism Solutions. And one of the things that they did, and it's called Front Page Publishing, partnered with a number of nonprofit organizations to develop this book, and it's called What Next? I will show this now. What I should say, I'm going to show this to you here. It's a great book where, if you're a caregiver and you don't have a lot of time to sort of do reading, but you can kind of flip through it because there might be something in there that you need right now, such as, where do I get respite from? How do I go about finding services for my mom or dad? This is a variety of different things there. So anyway, you can buy this book on Amazon. I would urge people to get it. And again, it's it's based upon certainly the knowledge of Detroit-based nonprofit organizations do a lot of work in this area.
Thank you, Vincent. Antonia, elder law attorney, Antonia Harbin Lamb, is the manager of Great Lakes Legal Mediation Division and staff attorney with Neighborhood Legal Services Michigan, the Elder Law and Advocacy Center. She's also the host of the Caregiver Conversations podcast, providing busy caregivers with legal and resource information. And I should add that the podcast is available on WJR's The Great Voice. Antonia, what are some of the challenges of caregivers legally?
So thank you, thank you, Pat, for introducing me. Thanks for having me today. I just want to go through a couple areas where caregivers and care recipients may need legal assistance. First of all, when completing life planning documents, that's something that we're seeing a lot of, certainly during the pandemic, that people want to have those life planning documents completed. And what I mean by life planning documents are power of attorney for finances or for healthcare. And we're seeing a lot of people, a real uptick in trying to get those documents completed. And it's definitely, the time to do it is now. But, the pandemic does bring some challenges with that, with being distanced and things of that nature. But our organization still is helping those who are 60 and older who live in Wayne County to get those documents completed. And they're really important because it gives caregivers the authority to be able to make decisions on their care recipients' behalf if they're unable to make those decisions on their own at some point. And it also is an alternative to guardianship and conservatorship. So it keeps that decision-making outside of the court. Another area that's really big this time or during this time is we're seeing a lot of evictions at this point of older adults. And caregivers really need to take heed to that. If they find that their care recipient has received a notice to quit or something that's saying that they need to move right away or, for a certain reason, they need to come to an attorney. They need to contact someone right away because time is of the essence in that sense. And also if they're needing some repairs done, we're seeing a lot of situations right now where repairs are being delayed, where seniors may be living in certain situations that are really unhealthy for them. And management companies are not taking care of these situations. You should call an attorney also in that instance as a caregiver. Another area is always with abuse. There's a lot of scams going on, identity theft right now. If you see that in your care recipient, please give an attorney a call. Like I said, our services are available for those who are 60 and older who live in Wayne County. They're available for caregivers of those care recipients as well. We can be reached at 313-937-8291 if anyone is needing those services, and they are free. And we also have a sister agency that helps with disputes. If there's disputes in caregiving or any other area, we have another agency that can help with that as well. And like Pat said, we do have this podcast that we've developed especially for caregivers, all different types of topics, really inspirational stories from other caregivers. And we are on a lot of the platforms, WJR, Pandora, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts right now.
Thanks, Antonia. 2 points I wanted to make. One is that I don't want people to, the first time they ever heard of a AAA, to always think that we're talking about the automobile agency. Area agencies on aging probably is the first stop that one might want to make when concerned about giving services and support for their family caregivers or for the care recipient. And the other thing is, Antonia, when you say disputes, can we drill down a little more and just talk about the real deal, which is families?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Conflict in families is big, in any season, but especially right now where people have been more isolated and things of that nature. seeing a lot more conflicts and disputes within families, and certainly centered around caregiving. There may be limited help at this time, limited access. So we can help. We're mediators as well as attorneys, and we can help to facilitate a meeting between the family and help them to organize and, get on the same page about those issues, because it is all about the older adult in that instance. If, that's the issue is centered around the older adult.
Hi, Ms. Patricia. We are at the end of time here, so if you feel free to wrap it up. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful panel, though. Really, really informative.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. And we will post the information, and I saw a couple links come through, so we'll make sure that that gets shared with our community as well. Thank you to all three of you for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of the panelists and all of the folks watching who joined us today. We really enjoy putting together this weekly show, and hope that it's as informative for you as it is for us to put together. We're going to bring us to our closing, but a couple of announcements that I wanted to share. One, there's the Coronavirus Community Care Network is operating a COVID-19 testing site, testing, not vaccines, at the Joseph Walker Williams Community Center, which is on Rosa Parks Boulevard. Testing will be open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And from what we heard from the doctor today, as this is spreading, we may have more folks that need testing. And just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean that you can't contract this. Please call area code 313-230-0505 to book your appointment. We will also have a link for testing sites across the state. That link will be going into the chat at some point. We also want to have our community message here of, please, if you're offered the vaccine, please take it. We've already heard today that even vaccinated folks can contract COVID, but that the symptoms are much milder. We want to keep you out of the emergency room, out of the ICU. We want to get to a point where we can all return and rejoice together. So keep wearing your masks, get your vaccinations, wash your hands, and let's all stay safe. This town hall is truly a group effort. So before we go, I'd like all of our partners to please turn on your video and say hello. And before we go, let me also just remind you all, stay healthy, stay powerful, and stay strong. Ophelia, could you please say that, give that the Spanish translation for us?
Yes. Manténganse saludables, manténganse poderosos, y manténganse fuertes.
Thank you all. We will see